Hello everyone. Hello Nicolas. Hello Burak. I'm very pleased to be in good company with you today. We have our friend from Istanbul, Burak, with us today. Nicolas is from Munich today, and I'm in Paris. Such a such a strange COVID time. We cannot travel. Otherwise, I would have been very happy to come to see you in Istanbul, Burak. So Burak is a founder of Startup Istanbul, an event where I have been lucky enough to go and speak as a speaker. I can tell you from a first-hand experience that it's an amazing event. I was so impressed by how many startups come from all around the world to Istanbul, and mainly because it's such an easy place to have visa when you come from countries like Russia, Eastern Europe, Africa. Istanbul is quite open in terms of visa policy, and that attracts startups from all around the world, and that's very interesting. So, Burak, thank you to be here today. Maybe you can introduce yourself a little about your background, and we can start.
Thank you, Oussama and Nicolas, for inviting me. It's my pleasure to be here. I'm very excited to share my Startup Istanbul experiences with all of you. I admire also the family's work, what you have done in France and Europe. You initiated lots of things, and we are inspired from you at Startup Istanbul, and we are, following your steps. So thank you very much for inviting me. So I'm founder of Startup Istanbul. My name is Burak Büyükdemir. We have started 2008 in Turkey as an acceleration program, which was very early days of the Turkish ecosystem. And Startup Istanbul became a hub for startups, especially untapped markets for last years. Of course, in the Corona situation, we have postponed our events. But I think this digitalization made all of the developing words more important, because today the talent is anywhere, and it was anywhere before the Corona outbreak as well. But I think the investors has realized that they can also invest these talents anywhere now.
Cool. And so so maybe first we can start the discussion. We'll be quite happy that you describe us like the Turkish ecosystem, what it takes to create a startup in Turkey, and what works well, what don't work well, what are the local challenges that people face.
That's a great question. I mean, Turkey, of course, has been progressing last 10 years, especially in the startup ecosystem. It is like a very slow growing ecosystem. Although Turkey has been the top 20 economy in the world, the investor and entrepreneur marketplace has been growing last 10 years. And now we are somehow harvesting and getting the results of these startup entrepreneurs and founders, which has recently happened, like Peak Games and Getir. Now unicorns are popping up. So we can see that 10 years ago, it was early stage of like all other countries. And very few mentors, access to finance was difficult. Angel investing was in the beginning. And especially the talent was here. And the copycats were the first kinds of startups that initiated the startup ecosystem in early 2010s. And then, of course, the investors become more seen in this market, and they have they begin to angel invest. And then our first success stories, such as eBay has acquired Gitti, which is a marketplace, and then Yemek Sepeti Delivery Hero has acquired them more than $600 million. And these kinds of two great examples triggered all of the investor ecosystem and startup ecosystem that they have a success story to sample themselves and look for the future. And of course, we have lots of universities and talented founders and engineering talent. So they started new companies. And we have seen several great companies or talented entrepreneurs who have migrated to US or Europe and initiated their companies in that countries. For example, Udemy's founder, Erembali, is one of them. Udemy is a great example. He has started his company in Ankara with Middle Technical University's Technopark, and then he went to US and started Udemy from scratch, but the idea was when he was in Ankara. So these kinds of examples made the ecosystem more connected and also more exciting, because there were examples they can check and they can see and they can inspire and follow. And this started, I think, the roots of the Turkish ecosystems 10 years ago. And now, with the several great exit stories this year, such as Peak Games, Turkey was a player country, but it wasn't creating games earlier years. But today we have, with the Zynga's acquisition of Peak Games, $1.8 billion, which is one of the earliest unicorns of Turkey. And we are having lots of gaming studios now all over the Turkey, but also Gram Games and Rolik has been acquired with the Zynga, especially last year. Also, it was a COVID situation. Also, COVID situation made gaming companies more, I think, more alluring and more attractive, of course. And then today, Turkey became a hub for talented gaming companies and studios, in my point of view. This is one of the recent progress, what happened last year. And of course, we have also e-commerce companies such as Trendyol was acquired by Alibaba, and also Marcofoni from Naspers. And these are great stories. And very recently, Getir, which is a grocery food delivery company, has been valued more than $2 billion. And they have entered the London market and they are looking for international expansion. I think the 10 years long story made lots of great steps for the Turkish startups, and next ones will be coming more easily, because in 10 years time we haven't a success story, international success story that we can learn the culture. So I think nowadays there is no effect of a startup. Yemek Sepeti may be one of the examples, because Yemek Sepeti's founders are angel investors now, and they have also a great milestone in Turkish history of a startup. So we should have like a PayPal mafia, a PayPal effect. Yeah. And so I think it will be more easily. Yeah.
Do you see all these entrepreneurs that exit in the last 2 years in Turkey becoming a natural investor in the Turkish ecosystem, or do they prefer to invest their money in US startups?
Tough questions. I don't know of course, the budget and how they allocate them, but I mean, the numbers of early stage investment is increasing. It's not comparable to other countries, but I mean, before the Peak Games exit, everything was like a PR and public relationship. I mean, I'm doing an investment, I'm making angel investments, we are supporting the startups. But after the Peak Games $1 billion exit, not only angel investors, but also all corporates and venture capitals and wealthy offices, wealthy family offices are more serious now, because it's a $1 billion business, and they are more serious with the startups, because it was earlier days, it was great exits, but I mean, today it affects the Getir valuation is more than most of the industrial companies in Turkey. So long story short, with your question, I think the numbers of angel investors is increasing. And the founders who have exited their companies are also started investing these early stage investors, startups. But I mean, numbers are not as we expect. But I think it's a kind of chicken and egg problem. And if there is more success stories, more angel investors will come, and it is flourishing. It will be flourishing more quicker. And there's a tipping point, I think, the amounts of probably unicorns. When we reach that point, we don't know the number, of course. It will be a more stronger ecosystem, in my point of view.
So a lot of us in Europe have heard about the Peak Games exit through investors that are actually based in Europe, like Hummingbird. They wrote a lot because they were seed investors in Peak Games and made a huge return, which is good. But who are the investors in Turkish startups at the moment? What's the distribution between local investors, those that are based in Turkey, and those that invest from the outside, from Europe, from the US, maybe a Turkish diaspora, or people that have nothing to do with Turkey in the first place, but are interested in the nascent ecosystem?
I mean, to start with the VC ecosystem, we should thank Cem and Evren, who are the founders of Early Bird Venture Capital. They are probably the most successful venture capital, probably in Europe, with their returns. Not only they have invested Peak Games, but also they funded lots of Turkish startups. Additionally, they have invested UiPath. UiPath is a Romanian company, which we may also talk about the rise of the rest, because Romania is Southeastern Europe and untapped market, and we haven't heard Romania as a startup hub, but they also invested UiPath, and UiPath is going to be an initial public offering, I think, in more than $45 billion valuation. It's not yet went to public. Coming back to your question, Early Bird is, in my point of view, one of the pioneer venture capital. Very early, by the way. They have been investing tens of years. Peak Games, Trendyol, I mean, they have Yemek Sepeti, lots of success stories. Additionally, nowadays, we have seen tens of venture capitals from Turkey, and they are local venture capitals. It started 10 years ago, but I mean, I think the last 5 years were the fastest growing venture capital vertical or sector has been increasing more than the earlier 5 years. And then we have seen also international global VCs like Sequoia and other General Atlantic, Tiger Global, and lots of other venture capital firms has been investing, especially in the later rounds, of course. And I think lots of venture capitals has been interested in the Turkish market, with the numbers growing in last 2 or 3 years' time. Of course, Naspers, for example, was here, and some acquisitions happened like eBay, and we have mentioned about the Zynga acquisition as well, and Delivery Hero. And I think these are, of course, tens of examples. I mean, if you compare with the Turkish ecosystem and the Turkish economy, it is, I mean, we should be better. I mean, if we compare with other countries, success stories such as Nordic countries, or, I mean, some European countries, Turkey should be better with the talented engineering force and lots of especially supporting mechanisms from the government, universities.
Yeah, what is, in your opinion, the invisible friction of the ecosystem? Like, for example, us in Europe, we have a huge mindset problem that is very invisible for policymaker, because we always end up killing startups by a lack of faith and lack of ambition. And the problem is that cannot be reflected in any public policy, because it starts as early as in school when we feel ashamed to ask a question. And all of that compounds until one day you are in a boardroom with investors and nobody around the table wants to do the right thing because they all lack courage. So what are the very deep kind of enemy of the startup culture inside the Turkish culture?
I mean, that's a great question. I mean, you spotted the problem very well. Of course, I mean, everything, we have the population, young population, we have the lots of talent, we have the probably potential to kind of attract lots of investors. But coming to sources, you have a great right. I mean, the culture is in the roots. Of course, the Turkish culture for the economy, for example, entrepreneurship is not kind of roots of the economy for the last 50 years time. So the economy has been government supported, and not entrepreneurship activities, not only this technology startups, but other entrepreneurship activities are supported. So the mindset is not like the US or Silicon Valley example, or we don't like failings, and we don't like failures, and we don't like entrepreneurs to fail, and there is no second chance for the founders. So these kinds of mindsets cannot be shifted or changed, modified in a daytime, or even in 5 years or 10 years time. It is, you should boil it gently. I mean, it took probably 20 years or more to change this mindset, because I mean, all the investors or the people who have been shaping the economy is coming from the earlier years, that they have been grown with the government economy subsidizing all of the verticals and sectors. And now the entrepreneurs are shaping the technology and everything. So in my point of view, the culture is not only Turkish startup ecosystem, but all of the untapped and emerging markets. First problem should overcome that, because not only Turkey, Middle Eastern countries, Africa, Pakistan to India, Bangladesh, these kinds of emerging markets have the same kinds of mindset. Of course, the culture are very similar, but the mindset is not try and try again. Failure is not the problem. These kinds of things are far away from us. But of course, the new generation changed very quickly, and they are adapted and accustomed to these kinds of new mindset quickly. And that's the reason probably we will see more success stories in next 5 years time, in my point of view. Of course, the culture is the European problem as well, the not taking the risk. And Turkey is, of course, historically and geographically sitting between Europe and Asia. If you have been to Istanbul, you can feel the mixture of these both cultures. And it is a European country, and we have some Asian and also Middle Eastern culture as well. And so it is just not only the geographically middle of these continents, but also culturally and historically we have the mixture of these mindset. So it is sometimes advantage, because, for example, when is the economic crisis happens, Turkey founders are accustomed to that, and we can have A plans, B plans, and we can face these kinds of chaotic situations very well indeed. But for example, the European startups has, I think, regulation problem, because European Union has been rooted with regulations because of lots of countries merged together from the last 40 years time, more than. And so regulation has been probably today, maybe after the Corona situation, regulation can be also a great for European startups. We don't know. I don't know, because today it is like wild west for some of the sectors, and regulation may be also another topic can be also mentioned for the next 10 years.
And by the way, when so we talk with a lot of investors who are interested in this phenomenon, the rise of the rest, the fact that there are more and more startups outside Silicon Valley, outside developed countries, and those are extraordinary opportunities for those who can spot them early. But when they look at a particular country like Turkey, they also see, the discussions around the nature of the regime, maybe fear that there's widespread corruption among, government employees. The fact that the chief of the central bank has just been sacked, and that there's a lot of uncertainty regarding the currency and its value. So what do you see from the inside? Like, it's normal for startups to be confronted with chaos and, uncertainty and rules that change all the time. So from a founder's perspective, it's not that much of a problem. But for investors who are considering opportunities to invest in Turkish startups, that may be, off-putting.
Great question. I don't know the exact answer, and it is like of a cutting edge for the political issues, of course. But that's right. You have read lots of things from the media. Discount them 50%, by the way, and you have mentioned in some points that had happened.
Only 50%.
Some of them are, of course, that we are facing. They are realities, but some of them are political kinds of agendas. And so, for the entrepreneurs and founders, most of, as far as I know, as far as I meet in the Turkish startup ecosystem, they don't care. And today, because if you cannot live with the political and these kinds of daily things, if you wanted to change the world, of course, or if you wanted to be focusing on your company. So, because not only Turkish startups, but check out the broad geography. Not only Turkey, last 5 years' time, everything was very chaotic. Even US. Today, after the elections, we are very well stable. But check out the five years' time. It was like every day there was a kind of topic, and it affected the not only US but the world. So, in my point of view, the entrepreneurs face these kinds of difficulties, and they made them stronger, by the way. So if they don't kill the companies, they become stronger because they can also shift their strategies and also their power, in my point of view. So long story short, yes, there are changing political situations in Turkey, and it is tough to for the startups to face them. But startups and entrepreneurs are now aware of the economic situation, that if they structure a stronger company, they can not only affect the Turkish local market, but they can go global. And because we have lots of successful stories in Europe, US, and other countries. For example, the Karim effect has been in Middle East. After the Uber's acquisition, the people who have been working in Karim has also created new companies, and also Souk and Maktub. These kinds of Middle Eastern countries has started their own ecosystem, and it's growing. And for example, we have another gaming company, Tamatem, which was also on our stage at Startup Istanbul when they were a tiny company. Now they are a game publisher and creating any kinds of culture. And Turkey, Middle Eastern countries, African countries, also Asian, Southeastern countries have the political difficulties. We know that. And of course, other countries has different kinds of difficulties. So, and you have to live in these kinds of economic situations and also make your strategies and make these kinds of weak points and convert them to stronger points. So I think this is the mindset in all the untapped and developing countries founders, in my point of view. And also rising of the rest, I think Brett Feld and Ayn Hathaway has the Startup Community Way, a book which tells different kinds of communities, how they can also create their own communities. And this is a great book, by the way. And Christopher Schroeder, which we hosted him earlier years, he have a great book about startup rising, about the Middle Eastern countries startups. And he's an advocate of especially these emerging countries and markets. And of course, Steve Kay's Third Wave, Rise of the Rest movement has also, it was also on the table, but these kind of things triggered all the probably talented entrepreneurs to be seen on the stage. And after the Corona situation, I think it is more obvious that the talent is anywhere. Because think about the last year, most of the San Francisco Silicon Valley investors should not invest if the startups are not in the 50 miles radius. They were telling that it was a cliche. If I cannot drive to you, I cannot invest to you. Today, they cannot drive, but they can invest. What happened in a year time? So, probably VCs are disruptive. Going to be disrupted as well, because the talent is anywhere. And I strongly believe, and I know that your thesis is also like that, the talent is anywhere. And they can start the company anytime. Today is probably the most suitable time to start a company, like 2008. The gig economy has been flourished in that years because the resources were scarce of resources, and Uber, Airbnb, or lots of companies has made the business model. And I think we will see new business models next 5 years, these founders will be setting up their companies in these years. And I don't know, probably remote anything, remote health, remote work, because these kinds of sectors and verticals will be improving, but we don't know how. And long story short, I strongly believe about the rise of the rest, and that's the reason we gather at Startup Istanbul untapped markets and emerging countries. I call them long tail countries, and Istanbul is a historical and a geographical in the middle of these countries, and we are welcomed, all of the entrepreneurs. By the way, as Oussama mentioned, our visa program enables us to invite lots of countries before the Corona. We have organized lots of events which have hosted many countries in Istanbul. Of course, we are planning after this pandemic is over, we should definitely invite lots of startups from these underrepresented countries, and also investors from different geographies, hopefully. And I strongly believe the rise of the rest, that's how our thesis is based on that.
What about the diaspora? So I've been in London for 5 years now. I'm in Germany, and in both places there are a lot of Turkish people who retain a very strong relationship with their home country. Do you see the diaspora playing a role in the rise of the local ecosystem? Are there Turkish investors abroad that invest in local startups? Are there Turkish people that come back to Turkey to found startups because they want to benefit from this rising tide?
So, I don't have the statistics or research on that, but as far as I sense or I see from my close surrounding, yes, they are. And we have successful stories in US, Europe, or other countries. For example, the founder of Gorillas, which is Berlin-based delivery company, he's from Turkey, and probably they will be also a great company in the long term. So we have lots of successful diaspora. Some of the names we don't know. Some of the names are popular. And I think they don't announce their investments or kinds of coming to Turkey, helping supporting Turkish ecosystem. But as far as I know, I heard, yes, they are. And but the impact is not enough, of course. We should need more impactful investors, and not only for Turkey, by the way, but in my point of view, all the emerging markets, because the investment, making investment to startup probably is raising with investments to real estate, especially in emerging markets. Real estate in developing markets are probably getting more returns than startups, and startups are illiquid and long-term commitments and long-term investments. And in my experience, as far as I have talked with these developing countries, real estate was the first investment alternative to startup investment. And so this is, for example, the basic problem, which is not talk in investor community, probably in US or Europe, but it's the fact of daily life in emerging markets. So also, we have successful stories, as I mentioned, Udemy, for example, and we have lots of Turkish community after Udemy has been successful in San Francisco. They are not only startups, entrepreneurs, but they are working also in great companies, unicorns or startups or Google, Facebook, these kinds of companies. As many people as we have, the network will be more stronger in the long term, because it is creating the bridge between different countries. And so some of them invest, but as I mentioned, I don't have the statistics, but in my hunch, it's increasing. Let me also emphasize that Ayten Şenkut, the founder of Felicis Ventures, is also one of the earliest employee of Google, and he is one of the greatest investors in US. And he's investing not only US companies, but international ones, as far as I know, reading from the articles. So his roots are from Turkey, and I think these kinds of connections will make stronger ecosystems in the long term. I'm giving examples from Turkey because I know the Turkish diaspora and also the names, but it can be implemented to Pakistan, to India, to Egypt, to Nigeria. We have seen lots of Nigerian startups, and as far as I read from the articles, I haven't been to physical in Nigeria, but I am following up the ecosystem in Nigeria because it's one of the hot marketplaces in Africa, and lots of great startups are coming from there. And also there are new centers of startups, hubs, I think, in different countries nowadays. And also Corona has triggered these kinds of new hubs, because it was San Francisco, Tel Aviv, New York, Massachusetts, and Berlin, London. France, London, Stockholm. But today, I think the developing world, the rest of the world has the advantage, because everybody believes that they can do an investment on Zoom or Skype call or anything. And you don't need to go there and stay there for 3 months physically for an acceleration program. And the family, as far as I watched your earlier YouTube channel programs, you have done it in a day. You made the acceleration program in a day. And probably you will not, physical touch is I mean, it is very important, and also it is priceless, of course, making this call or physically in Istanbul or Paris or Berlin. But I mean, today, this has the same kinds of results as we have done a year ago. So we can do the investments. You have the demo day 2 weeks ago online. And so the results are the same. You are doing the investments, and all of the other investors has the same kinds of probably results with the last year's corona situation affected them.
Yeah, one of the things that interests me to have your opinion is how easy it is for international entrepreneurs to set up in Istanbul. So I can tell you a personal anecdote that I lived recently. I was stuck for 7 days in the airport because they lost my PCR, and I got refused access to the Schengen zone because France closed the border, and I was in the international transit zone in Amsterdam. And after struggling for days and days inside the airport, they finally tell me, okay, now you can travel, but you cannot go back to France because France is basically closed. And they say you have to go somewhere. And so I started to look online the easiest destination, and it was Istanbul. So I landed in Istanbul, took a flight for Rome, and then Paris. So this craziness of rules. But during that process, I realized how easy it was for so many nationalities to come to Istanbul. So first, I was very surprised by that. And I was wondering, because even with my Lebanese passport, that is like one of the weakest passport on earth, I can live in Istanbul. That is an amazing city. And I was wondering if that spirit also applied to entrepreneurs, and if a lot of entrepreneurs took that as an advantage to set up in Istanbul and build a company.
I mean, this is a great question, because last 2 to 3 years, we have also received lots of immigrant founders from Syria to Iran to Iraq. Lots of founders has established their companies. Technically, I mean, I cannot tell the direct steps of establishing a company here, but I mean, I know it's not so difficult. But comparing with Estonian e-residency program, we haven't reached there. So e-residency program has made a shift of mindset probably, and but our e-government and government activities are all online. Today, I have made lots of activities myself with the e-government, going no physical touch with, and I have done lots of things without going to physical banking and also other departments of the government. And I know from several countries in Europe, it is very difficult still, these kinds of things. So we are also in talks with Istanbul Development Agency, which they are focusing on to bring lots of startups, different countries to Istanbul to set up their companies here, structure their companies here. But it is not a country's strategical point or the title that they publish or announce. Saying that, probably we should do better in the terms of the steps that a foreigner can establish a company in Turkey easily. As we have seen the Delaware example or Estonian example, because I mean, if you wanted to establish a company in Delaware, we can set up the company probably tomorrow. I mean, very easily. And you can also, yes, 1 hour. And also in UK. And you can also manage it before, I mean, without going to Delaware or US very easily. And this is very, I mean, getting the difficulties easier, so the entrepreneurs can also enter in this door. So today, we have, especially the banking system in Turkey, e-banking system has stronger comparing with lots of banks in Europe and US, by the way. I mean, I'm not talking about their balance sheet or revenue, but I mean, as a matter of technical aspect and UX, UI, I could easily say that, and I'm not a banking expert, but you can easily get others' opinion as well for the Turkish banking system. So e-government has also been very strong in last since 3-4 years time, and the Turkish citizens can do lots of things online. And I think not only the tax authority has been digitalized, but everything is going to be step by step goes online. And to your question, I don't know the exact technical terms, but comparing with, of course, the two examples, they should be better to structuring a company in Turkey for the startups. But the immigrant founders who have been, as you mentioned, Middle Eastern countries, African countries, or Southeastern countries, has last 3 to 4 years has come to Istanbul and set up their companies here. But we don't have the statistics or data that I can show you today. But the numbers are increasing. Hopefully, it will also trigger the ecosystem to flourish, different kinds of mindsets and connections, because we have now the numbers of co-working spaces. Of course, the Corona station made not available for entrepreneurs to work together, but the number of co-working spaces are increasing. The university technoparks, the universities, these kind of connecting points are increasing. And this is part of the ecosystem, by the way. Not only investors connecting the pieces of puzzle, and also, for example, the events that like we do. There are lots of events in Turkey, and these kinds of connecting points made more valuable structures.
Very interesting.
So Turkey is an interesting ecosystem with more and more startups, but it's also a huge market. I'm just checking the population. It's 82 million people. So it's almost as large as Germany, larger than France. Do you see many entrepreneurs from abroad, from Europe or maybe the US, trying to enter the Turkish market and effectively becoming competitors to local startups?
I mean, Turkey is, by the way, because I have also lived in nearly 2 years in Berlin. I have the roughly idea cultural mindset in Berlin. So it was 10 years ago, by the way. So my German is very not strong as the 10 years ago, last 10 years ago.
But yeah, but don't worry. In Berlin, no one speaks German anymore.
So Turkey is one of the top social media usage country all over the world, probably top 10 countries. Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, count on it. I mean, you can Twitter, and the political situation has been impacted with the Twitter tweets, by the way. So not only the social media, but e-commerce companies are, because with the more than 83 million population, 50% of this population is under 33, by the way. I mean, very young and attractive market. And so lots of, like Alibaba has entered the Turkish market, and Amazon has entered the Turkish market. Lots of international companies has been entering the ecosystem lately. But I mean, definitely not only the startup ecosystem affects that, you need a stable economy as well. As Nicolas mentioned about the exchange rates and political decisions about the investors, yes, it affects their decisions. But I mean, there is a huge purchasing power, and it is growing. And probably that's one of the reasons it's one of the attractive markets in if you compare with other markets. So it is a long answer to your question, but I think it will be more attractive to also international global companies as well, such as Google, Facebook, or other new companies to test their products in this more than 80 million population.
I'd have maybe one last question, which is about COVID. So what has been the impact of the pandemic in Turkey? And how do you see Turkey coming out of this, terrible period? What will be the impact on the local startup community?
I mean, of course, everyone affected with the corona situation, like in Turkey, we did with all economic powers and also startups and companies, and daily life has been shifted in the last 10 months time, last 10 months. And for example, we have postponed our events, and the event sector has been completely probably went online. And I mean, probably it will be changing, and I don't know where to go. I mean, the next, it will be probably the economic model will shift. For example, we postponed the April edition and October edition, Startup Istanbul, and we went directly online. So, and also other parties in the economy has also been affected. Some of them has been negatively affected, some of them has been positively affected, such as delivery business or online gaming, online kind of dating has been probably positively affected. So some of the sectors has been, such as travel, and negatively affected, and industries related to travel has been going down, probably has been difficulties, but technology was always on the table, and it is being more stronger now, because every sector has been connected now technology. The retail sector has been now talking about e-commerce, because last year they were going to shift and probably change their business strategies in next 5 years, but today they have shifted in a couple of months to e-commerce. And for example, the delivery business was very difficult, was challenging in Turkey, and now it is stronger than ever. So we have positively affected sectors and negatively affected sectors. And I don't know the other countries' strategies, but I think Turkey has the same difficulty as we need more vaccines, and I don't hope to become stable before 1 or 2 years' time. So I think it's a matter of fact, the business of doctors and also health sector to expect that. But I mean, this is the new norm, so we have to move on the new rules. And I think the founders and entrepreneurs are ruling that.
Very interesting. We are approaching the end. I have a question for you. I think that will interest a lot of people. Who are the startups to follow in Turkey that are very early stage and nobody knows about, but you think they are really interesting? Not like the obvious one that everybody talk already about, but like maybe 4 or 5 of the people you really love and you want to support.
That's a great question. If they are listening to this podcast and also the YouTube channel, they will be also surprised. I have been mentoring and talking with these startups in last couple of weeks. One of them is AppNava. AppNava is a gaming, it's not a gaming company, but they help the gaming companies to predict their games, and also help gaming companies to more easy structured games. And they have an artificial intelligence and machine learning system that clarifies which levels has been the problematic, or which kinds of gaming structures has been difficulty for the user. And they don't do manually. They have a deep learning algorithm which enables all the gaming studios to predict the levels that struck the users. So in the gaming companies, this is a major problem, and because they have 3-4 people or and small teams, so one people has to be testing and seeing all these kinds of mistakes and errors, and it is very difficult as a manual force. So AppNava gathers all this experience from different gaming companies in their data set, so they can predict, they can give a prediction for the gaming studios, a better leveling and also a flow, smooth flow for the gaming studios. This is one of them. They are very in the early stage, by the way. Another one is Smart Alpha. Smart Alpha is a digital health company. They have a software which has been used by the 10 hospitals recently. They are monitoring the blood vessels, and of course, I'm not an expert in health, but the team has been very strong. So they also make me believe that their software has been very strong. So I cannot tell the. Yes, go ahead.
The second one is Smart Alpha.
Smart Alpha, yes.
How do you write it? Because we are trying to put on the chat in sometimes the
yes,
URL.
Great. Let me all. Yes. I'm looking at my private chat. This is
okay.
Smart Alpha. And AppNava, let me see the AppNava as well.
AppNava we have already.
All right, great.
AppNava we put it.
AppNava, and let me Delivers AI is this is the Delivers AI. I'm looking at their website as well. Delivers AI is a robotic company, and they are like I will say the example. They have also a global competition, by the way, but the team is very strong. So I strongly believe that they can also shift a new model, but they are working on the robotics and also delivery. And we have Speedy Market. This is also a grocery, and they use robotics in their system. And also Unomoi has an online fashion company. Unomoi is like this one. And these are 5 very easy startups that I have been working or meeting with them several weeks ago. So I like the teams. The common point in these startups are the teams are whether they will be successful in these teasers or in their model, they can shift it, they can survive, they have the capability of mindset. So I believe in them. And if I have the fund, I should invest in them.
Cool. Good to know. Good to know. Good to know.
Yes, Unomoye is that.
Okay, we will share it. We will share it in the chat.
Yes.
Nicolas, few words to the end.
Yes, well, thank you. It's been a great pleasure to hear you talk about the Turkish ecosystem, especially in Istanbul, and to have you confirm that indeed something's happening outside the main startup hubs that are Silicon Valley, London, Tel Aviv, and so on, and that we all have to be on the lookout for interesting opportunities, and we all have to reach out to people like you that are on the ground and that are able to spot what's really happening and to echo the founder's point of view. So thank you, Burak.
What a lesson to learn that 100% of the government things happen online. I hope our government in Europe are going to watch this podcast and take some example from Turkey. Thank you, Burak. It was great to have you here with us.
Thank you very much for inviting me. It was my pleasure, and I admire your work, and I'm always supportive the family in anyhow I can help and support.
Let's do more together for sure. Thank you.
Yes,
Thank you
very
everyone
much
on the chat. See you
Thank
next
you.
week for
Bye-bye.
Good Company. Bye bye.
Burak.